Jason Miller had worked as a lumberjack for nearly 20 years. He had seen storms tear through forests, trees struck by lightning, and even black bears roaming nearby. But nothing had prepared him for what he found deep in the woods of northern Oregon. It started like any other morning. Jason packed his gear, sharpened his axe, and drove down the dirt road to a new logging site. The forest was thick and quiet, covered in early morning mist. The trees were tall, standing like silent guards. But as Jason stepped out of his truck and looked around, something felt off. He noticed that many of the trees nearby had large, strange bumps on their trunks. They weren't knots or common bark growths. These lumps were round, firm, and oddly spaced. Some trees had 2 or 3 of them bulging out like swollen scars. Jason stepped closer and touched one. It felt cold and hard. He scratched his beard and muttered to himself, "This doesn't look right." Curiosity growing, Jason radioed his friend and coworker Mike, who was finishing work at another site just a few miles away. "Hey, Mike," Jason said. "You got a minute? You need to see this." 15 minutes later, Mike pulled up in his pickup truck. Together, they walked through the woods, examining tree after tree. Every one of them had those lumps. Some were higher up, others right at eye level. Mike frowned. "This ain't normal," he said. "Trees don't grow like this. Something's wrong here." They decided to cut one of the trees down to get a better look. It was a thick pine, about 20 feet tall, with 2 large lumps on its trunk. Jason and Mike grabbed their chainsaws and started cutting. But the tree was tough, tougher than usual. The wood inside didn't feel like regular pine. It was dense, almost metallic. Sparks flew off the chainsaw blades a few times, making them pause and look at each other. "You feel that?" Jason asked. "It's not cutting like it should." They kept going, switching to axes once they got closer to the lump. After nearly an hour, the tree finally groaned and came crashing down. Birds scattered from the noise. The forest went still, again. Jason walked up to one of the lumps. It was about the size of a football. He took his axe and began chopping into it carefully. Mike stood beside him, watching. After a few minutes, Jason's axe hit something that didn't sound like wood. It made a metallic clang. He froze. "What was that?" Mike whispered. Jason peeled away more wood, heart pounding. And then, they saw it. Sticking out of the center of the lump was an old, rusted metal object. Jason bent down and pulled it, out slowly. It was a grenade. Mike took a step back, eyes wide. "Don't move," he said. Jason placed it gently on the ground. His hands were shaking. They looked inside the tree again. There were more metal objects, another grenade, a curved piece of something that looked like part of a rifle, and some corroded bullets. Jason didn't wait. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "This is urgent," he told the operator. "We found explosives inside a tree. We're in the North Ridge Woods, about 10 miles east of Red River. Please send someone fast." Within 30 minutes, the police arrived, followed by a bomb squad. The area was sealed off. Jason and Mike stood near their trucks, watching silently as men in heavy gear examined the tree. One of the officers came over. "You two did the right thing calling this in," he said. "These are live explosives, very old, but still dangerous." Later, that day, the forest was declared a restricted zone. No one was allowed in without special permission. Over the next week, an investigation team discovered something shocking. That area of the forest had once been used for secret military training during World War II. Old records showed that weapons had been tested and stored there, but after the war ended, the place was forgotten. The forest had grown over it, and, over time, trees had literally grown around the leftover weapons, swallowing them into their trunks. Jason sat on the porch of his cabin a few days later, still shaken by the discovery. He kept thinking, what if he hadn't noticed the lumps? What if someone had chopped down a tree without checking? What if one of those grenades had exploded? Mike called him that evening. "Man, we were lucky," he said. "Real lucky." Jason nodded, even though no one could see him. "Yeah, but next time I'm listening to my gut the first time it tells me something's wrong." And from that day forward, he never walked into a forest without checking the trees, not just for their health, but for secrets hidden deep inside. Them, because in the woods, sometimes the past isn't buried underground. Sometimes it's still standing, waiting to be found.